evening. Welcome to Voices on Madhouse Reality TV. My name is Alice, and this show is about the pandemic issue of abuse. Did you know that 10% of our female population in these United States, of young girls and women, have an eating disorder? So, what makes a very vibrant, happy female, young woman or woman, do something to themselves that could be drastically unhealthy or be their death? Tonight we have Heather Summerstein, and we're going to talk about that issue and how it relates to abuse this evening. Welcome. Welcome back, Heather.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you so much for having me back, by the way. Thank you.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure to speak with you. You're always full of information for me.
Thank you. Thanks. I try.
One of the things I knew about you is that you did work in a very prestigious center that worked with females who had the eating disorders. One of the things that came to mind for me, well, actually, I'm going to put that aside for now. Why don't you tell me some of the different factors that do create, this symptom, why someone might be having an eating disorder? Why don't you give me some of those factors?
Sure. There's a lot of different schools of thought on eating disorders, and certainly not being a clinician in that field, I don't want anyone to see this and say, she doesn't know what she's talking about, which, probably will happen anyway, but
well, there you go.
It's okay. So, there are a couple of different eating disorders, and one of them, the first one being anorexia. And, a lot of people, there's some confusion about what anorexia is and bulimia and binge eating. So let me help you understand that a little bit in layman's terms. So anorexia on its own is really defined as just not taking in food, not feeding oneself, ritualistic behavior around food, meaning that, maybe the anorexic is not going to eat something that's red. All things red are off the table. Anything that's touching something is off the table. But ideally, minus the rituals, it's starving of oneself to the point of death. That's the only piece that they have found a genetic marker for, because it's very hard to explain in the 7-year-old or the 8-year-old who is diagnosed with anorexia, how do you trace that back to some kind of trauma? So there's a bit of a genetic marker. So for our purposes, though, anorexia is not eating, starving yourself. So then we have the bulimic, and the bulimic is the person who, eats an inordinate amount of food, usually in a confined time space, and then purges, which is throwing up, and it's usually right after they've eaten that food. So when we talk about a purge cycle, just because someone throws up, in that throwing up, they may be throwing up 5 to 6 times in that one purge, because they're standing there actually trying to get all of that up. And any of us who have thrown up from being sick or, maybe having too much alcohol to drink, it's not just a one-shot deal. You're there for a while. So the bulimic is, also very different from the personality of the anorexic, where the anorexic personality is, and again, there are exceptions to every rule, and I'm being very general, but the anorexic is very contained in their body language, very timid, obviously very tiny, seems to have a lot of strong boundaries, very rigid, will kind of look at you. You know this person.
Right.
You don't really know where you stand because in some of their affectations can be, a little all about maintaining some sort of control.
Control.
Exactly.
It's about control.
Exactly. Of what they eat.
Well, that's a lot of control if you think about it, restricting what you're eating.
Yes. And let me just caution everyone by saying that all eating disorders are not just about control. They're about being out of control. Because who in their right mind, would want to do something like this and think that they have control? The bulimic,
is that an illusion for the patient? I mean, is that an illusion for the person that's actually it's their illusion?
It has to be in order to maintain the behavior. Because it does ostensibly control the family. It's controlling the school. It's, everyone around them is now reacting to this person that's not eating. And it's not because, they're selfish or, want all the attention. The bulimic is that person, that personality who never, can say no. Yes, I will do everything and, takes everything in. It is someone who is probably a people pleaser, but yet, says, I cannot believe this person just asked me to do that. Yeah, I'm going to do it, but my God, does anyone, they're taking me for granted. That personality tends to go along with this eating until the point of, maybe consuming 4,000 or 5,000 calories at a sitting and then throwing up. So now you have the anorexic, the bulimic, and then there's the binge purge person who binge eating disorder is similar to the bulimic, but they're doing this, 2 and 3 times a day where they're binging and they're purging, and they're binging and they're purging. You also have bingers that don't purge.
Would that be more calories than a bulimic would take in than at a sitting? Are they doing more calories in a binge?
They're doing less calories in a binge, but they're binging more often. So in other words, like the bulimic might not purge every single day. The bulimic might, progress we would say is, okay, if she was binging or she was purging rather 10 times a week, if she's now only purging 5 times a week, that is progress. Where the binge purger is probably going to do that maybe 2 to 3, 7 times per day. Eat while less calories, but a lot, and then purge. So
let me ask you this
Sure.
question. The anorexic, we already know her body type. But would the bulimic also be a slim, or
it's a good question.
Or are they going to be a little heavier?
It's a great question. Really depends, because the bulimic might not be getting rid of all of those calories. And also you have to add into the component of eating disorders, the overexercising piece. Chances are the bulimic may look a little heavier than the anorexic, could be, not necessarily. Okay. The binge eating disorder person who doesn't purge, but let's say restricts, so I'm going to use some terms here.
Okay.
The binge eating, everyone knows someone who's got an eating disorder, regardless of what it is. So let me tell you what the binge eating disorder person looks like. That's someone who may eat nothing for a couple of days, restrict their calories, then binge, but not purge. So they're not throwing up. What's going on with them is they're not getting a chance to get it out. So now it gets to fester psychologically, and the hate is just all around. But to answer your question, the anorexic is probably going to look the slimmest. The last category, which is going to change with the upcoming DSM-5, is this EDNOS, which is eating disorder not otherwise specified.
Right.
Which means it's the catch-all.
I know. We have that in other mental health disorders. You have the NOS. So how is that different?
Because the NOS can have a huge component of, let's say I said over-exercising and laxative abuse, where maybe the anorexic is not using laxatives. This is someone that you definitely want to get diagnosed, but also you do not want to overlook the amount of laxatives that they're taking. Now, I've had a girl sit in my office and tell me that she was taking over 100 laxatives a day. That being said, after she received treatment, if she took any more laxatives, she could actually die.
Absolutely. But she'll be in an electrolyte imbalance. She can have a heart attack. It's just so many things can go wrong in that kind of situation.
The genesis of eating disorders, which I thought was interesting, I believe, started with, what is the Catholic school here in Islip? The name of it, not St. Catherine.
In Islip, St. Mark's?
It's a female name.
Oh,
it's a saint.
In East Islip, there's one St. Mary's.
So
I'm not sure.
The way eating disorders even became to what we know them to be today, I think it was Catherine the Great. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. But it was about how you look. And body image is very much tied into abuse and the abuser.
Okay. You know, it's so funny because I'm older than you. And
Not
so,
quite that much.
So what I remember as everybody becoming, a lot of girls very focused on their appearance and not eating and the anorexia. And I didn't know about the binging and purging when I was younger, but I knew a lot of girls were just skipping a lot of meals and restricting. And in that time period, when I was younger, it was Twiggy's fault. She looks like a waif. What is she, 5'10" and all of 90 pounds maybe? She didn't seem feminine really because she was flat. Everything was flat, small. She had the big eyes. She looked like a waif, basically. She looked like a waif. This little girl, this woman in a little girl's body.
Yep.
And that's where I thought it began. It was so funny. That's where I thought it began. I was like, oh, that was all the Twiggy thing.
It jumped into popularity and into the public eye there, but you bring up Twiggy and the idea that she looked androgynous.
Yes.
And we both know that there's a big tie between sexual abuse and eating disorders, and a lot of us tend to believe eating disorders usually are a result of trauma or traumas. This androgynous, almost girl-looking boy, to me, this thin, it's all tied.
Sure. One of the things that, as I was doing the research, is, there was a lot on the sexual trauma and eating disorders, and how they're trying to change their appearance to either fend off anybody. So, and we didn't talk about this, but how about just eating and gaining weight and being heavy to fend off anyone who may be looking at you, to not get those looks, to not be attracted to somebody else. Because we have that as well, and I read a lot about that, which I thought it was interesting, because we do tend to talk a lot about the eating disorder as the ones that are trying to be slimmer, but then You have a whole Overeaters Anonymous. You have all these overeaters. So what's going on there? It's still an eating disorder.
That's correct. You couldn't be more right. And we have to talk about that because that was a huge part of my abuse with my father, who said to me, you're going to be fat and fat women shouldn't live. So, yeah.
Fat women shouldn't live.
Fat women shouldn't
What message is that to a child?
What kind of message is that, period? And let me just say, this man was no George Clooney. The nerve, the unmitigated gall. Fat women don't deserve to live.
Fat women don't deserve to live. Can you even believe that? And I want you to hold on to that thought. Call in if you have something you would like to talk about or say about that comment, and we'll be back in just a moment.
For professional motorcycle transport and towing, think Kickstart Fabrications Motorcycle Towing. Proudly serving all of Long Island, we feature expert handling and 24/7 service. So send a limo for your toy with Kickstart Fabrications Motorcycle Towing.
Welcome to Formula Auto Wash, where every day is a great day for a car wash. Open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. till 5:30 p.m. Sundays 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. Detailing packages for every budget, starting out at $29.99. 100% hand wash and detail centre. Hog's hair and microfiber brushes and mitts. Proudly used in Ecolab Blue Coral soaps and waxes. Formula Auto Wash has served the community for over 30 years. Senior discounts all day, every day. Ladies' Day Wednesday, $3 off any wash. Early bird discount Monday through Thursday till 9:30 a.m. Check out our website, formulaautowash.com.
B&M Performance Cycles, 439 South Main Street, Messina, New York. We handle all parts, accessories, and do all repairs. We can custom build your bike for show or hot rod. We also do New York State inspections on all motorcycles. B&M Performance Cycles. Come see us today.
Welcome back to Voices on Madhouse Reality TV. I'm talking here with my colleague and good friend, Heather Summerstein, about eating disorders and how it correlates with abuse. And so we're going to come back. And before we went off, we asked, what did you think about the comment, fat women should die? If you want to call in and make a comment on this, you don't have to give your name. The number here, you'll see at the bottom of the screen, is 631-669-7999. And we're back with Heather.
Just a quick aside on that with the fat women don't deserve to live. My father ended up marrying his second wife, who when he met her was 110 pounds, and she was stunning. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. And been married a little over 20 years now, and I could probably, if I wanted to, tie it to the abuse, but she is somewhere between 250 and 260 right now. Borderline diabetic, morbidly obese. And I'm not saying my father did that to her. In my own kind of warped way, I'm like, good dad. See? What does that mean? Fat women don't deserve to live. And I remember when he met his wife, he would describe her as so little. He wondered what size blouse she wore.
Oh, he's really thinking about that. That's
a lot of guys do. Mm-hmm. Being a single woman.
Well, that's the world, yeah, right now.
It is. And
that's the dating scene, isn't it?
The dating, you mean cesspool?
Yeah.
Because it's not a scene. certainly not a scene. That's for sure. But, eating disorders, what questions do you have for me? Sorry.
All right. So we've talked about the different types of eating disorders. At the place where you were working, did they get overweight girls? Did they,
Yes, and it really started with the campaign towards ending obesity. Because do we realize that obesity is an eating disorder? Yeah, it most certainly is. Mm-hmm. However, it would be very interesting to see when I would sit in on a group of 24-year-old girls that were maybe 75% of their ideal body weight with maybe a 35-year-old woman who was probably somewhere around morbidly obese. There was this disfigurement in what everyone was seeing. The end result is the same, mm-hmm. where the pain, the trauma, and over you would hear these women talk about whether it was sexual abuse, whether it was abandonment, whether it was witnessing domestic violence, whether it was their own abusive relationships. The eating disorder didn't just come out of nowhere.
Right.
And, I got to tell you that, a lot of those things are, not only preventable, but really? Now women are killing themselves quickly, slowly. But it's the obesity that's gaining, the popularity of the media, which let me just say is kind of dangerous because, I was in groups where now the anorexic, the bulimic feels even more disenfranchised because they're not sick enough for, the media to even care about right. them. Think about that.
But it's the same on television. Oprah was on TV losing all of this weight, and it was a big deal. But there is no one on TV that's going, well, now I need to gain weight.
Right. Because no one cares.
Right.
I say to myself, just before I got into this, particular field, eat something and be quiet. Really? Come on. You don't know what it's like to not have your jeans fit. You don't know. Alice, I had no idea the struggle that these women go through. I thought I hated myself. It brought it to a totally other level where the pain of not even being able to look into them, to restrict something that one needs, it's like air. Who in their right mind is going to cut their air supply off and expect to live?
That's true. Who would do that? But they're not seeing themselves appropriately, are they? When they're looking in the mirror, what you're saying, you're seeing this emaciated person and you're saying, my goodness, they look like from a concentration camp or something. They're not seeing that, are they?
No, it's the dysmorphic lens where it's almost like they're looking in a funhouse mirror. Because what has happened is the distortion, the neuropsychological piece. Now, there really is a distortion. This is not taking your girlfriend and saying, but you are thin. And she's going to go, okay.
Yes.
This is neuropsychologically ingrained in a lens that they actually cannot see until, some of the work that a lot of these clinics do will have someone draw out what their outline looks like, what they think it looks like. So, for example, I've seen a patient that will say, let's say, what is their outline? What do I look like? And they'll draw, something like that, right? And then what the clinician will do is actually put them against the wall. And what they really look like is that.
So when the clinician does this, do they believe it?
It's a pattern interrupt. It changes something because you can see it. I've seen it, the lights go off like, you can't argue with this.
So it's an aha moment. I call those aha moments.
Exactly.
I love aha moments.
Am I allowed to curse on here at all? It's a holy shit moment. Okay? Because it's like, and I also saw women, we'd have measuring tapes, and we'd say, so Mary, what do you think your circumference of your thigh is? And she'd take the measuring tape, and inevitably, it would be this.
Right.
And then the clinician would come over and take the measuring tape of the thigh, and I'm not kidding,
Oh, I've seen how small some of them are.
it would be this. And so when you show someone that, that's a game changer. That's a pattern interrupt that can regroove and change the neuroplasticity. You know, this is about saying, this is the deal. This is, you know, what you're seeing in the dysmorphic lens. And how do we treat that is first by getting them to understand what's real and what isn't.
Okay. It's amazing. I just want to add one more time, if you want to call in and if you have any questions about what we're talking about here today, please do call. The number is below the screen, and that's 631-669-7999. You had such a drastic childhood witnessing domestic violence, being with your father that whole time, then, you know, later on abuse. Did you end up with the eating disorder as well?
You know, yes. And getting into the world of eating disorders certainly highlighted my own. My eating disorder was not, it probably would fall under NOS because it would be periodic. I, at one point, was over 200 pounds and got to disappear because no one paid attention to me when I was 200 pounds or, and I felt so horrible. The eating, you know, they say filling a void or, you know, when you're eating, it feels like company. It felt like it was an escape from being me for 5 minutes. Then when my mother had gotten, who also has an eating disorder, terrible eating disorder, very, very, very thin. I mean, she is taller than me. I mean, I'm 5'2", she's 5'6". She went down to under 100 pounds. My grandmother, my mother's mother, we had, let me back up by saying, you know, right from the rip when it comes to body image, we were handicapped. Because for my grandmother, and I'm not trying to demonize her, it was she had a sign that said you can never be too rich or too thin. Mm-hmm. And she meant that because it was about how you looked.
I've heard that said before.
Yeah. And this woman meant it. I can tell you a story that from a child, my grandmother would tell me to hold my stomach in. Alice, if I undressed for you right now and showed you my upper abs, I have the sickest upper ab development because I don't think I've taken a breath in 41 years. Hold my stomach in. Okay? It's giving me incredible back strength and posture. Great upper abs. Hold your stomach in. When I went to work in this industry, it highlighted for me so many things that I didn't realize would resonate that I started to drop weight very quick. Because I was working in New York City. I didn't want to be the fat girl. I didn't want to be the fat girl that didn't fit into this business. I was now in public relations. I was now going to be looked at. Totally forget. My friends said they didn't hire you because, of how you look. And I'm thinking, exactly. I want them to hire me because of how I look. And I lost an inordinate amount of weight very quick. And I was telling you during the break that my site director had taken me into her office and said, what's going on? Because not only did I lose and on me, 15 pounds is 30 pounds on a regular person because I'm only 5'2". I then went and started dressing with clothes that, weren't big. Mm-hmm. So it looked like, I was just purging. But the fact of the matter was I had stopped eating. And once I realized what it's like to stop eating, there's a high involved.
Yes, I have heard that. There are some highs involved, or endorphins being released with that. I want you to hold that thought for a moment. We're going to go to a commercial, so we'll be right back in just a moment, and we will talk to Heather further.
I've never had a reading like this before, so just bear with me. I'm seeing bugs.
Bugs? I thought you were a psychic medium.
I know, that's what's confusing. Hold on. Do you want the good news or the bad news?
I'll take the bad news.
I think these are spirit bugs.
Spirit bugs? I've never heard of spirit bugs.
That's just it. Do you want the good news?
Yes.
I know Joe from Bug Busters of Long Island. He'll take care of your problem.
That's great.
You know you already want a Toyota, but when you want more from your Toyota store, you want Smithtown Toyota, where every Toyota comes with Smithtown Toyota's Toyota for Life program, giving you lifetime New York State inspections, lifetime 10% discounts on all parts and service, 2 years of complimentary oil changes, 2 years of scheduled maintenance, and more, all at no cost to you, plus low clear-out deals on every Toyota in stock. Get more from your Toyota store. Hurry to Smithtown Toyota.
Welcome back to Voices on Madhouse Reality TV. I'm talking with Heather Summerstein here. We're talking about eating disorders and their relationship with abuse. If you have any questions and you'd like to call in, the number is below on the screen, 669-7999, and that is a 631 area code. So let's get back to what we were talking about before, Heather. I was just saying this while we were waiting to come back on. Models are a lot thinner than, your mom is 100 pounds, 5'6", but models are 5'10" and could be 100, 105 pounds. Some of them could be 6 feet tall and about that weight. I don't even know how they're walking then.
Because they're walking hangers. There's been a couple of designers that have taken up the cause somewhat. Diane von Furstenberg is very much aware of eating disorders. However, the designers want walking hangers. And unless we stop buying into Fashion Week or demanding, that will never, ever change. However, Israel, oddly enough, was the first country that came out to say we have a standard now of what a model must weigh. And it's a healthy weight. Doesn't go by the BMI, because do your research, people. The BMI is draconian. It's nonsense. It has nothing to do with anything. We might as well, be using some kind of kaleidoscope to figure out where the stars are. That's how
and everybody's using
BMI.
It.
It's so beyond my comprehension that the BMI means absolutely nothing. Society, abuse. Look at Rihanna and Chris Brown, right? Here's a case of domestic violence, beauty. If you don't think that girl has an image eating issues, I'd bet the bank on it. These things are so intertwined because they inevitably get the person to, feel bad. And that's the end result is, feeling bad. When, I remember I had a boyfriend break up with me because he wanted me to lose 15 pounds. It was crushing.
I had the same thing happen to me, darling. I had the same thing happen to me, and it was about weight, and he wasn't there.
Help me to understand how that doesn't, do, coming from an already, again, crippled emotional place. The nerve! What did you say? Because I took it internally.
Well, I had an eating disorder for years and probably still do. I don't think, you were talking about recovered. There are times I think of binging. I don't. But the thought arises, because I've gained so much weight and I was so slim younger. And, as you get older, and also I had some car accidents where I was incapacitated. So now I wasn't exercising like I used to. So, what is someone like that has a belief about their body does? Went on a diet.
Exactly. Now, I tried to binge. I have tried, not recently, with the toothbrush, with whatever. I've tried, which I'm not alone, because I know that there are a lot of other people who've done that. It's just my thing, not my thing. I have such a fear of throwing up, but I will restrict. There's been days that I've gone without eating because, my mom, I remember when I had gotten down to a size 4, and I hadn't seen my mother in quite a few years, and I came walking off the plane, and I think I was 27, and as I'm walking down the runway, my mother was just like, what size do you wear? I had not seen this woman. Now, I blame my mother's mother for this. I don't even blame my mother because it's so ridiculous. And I remember going, hi. She's like, hi, how are you? What size are you wearing? And that's how caught up in the size.
Okay. kind of had the same thing because with my mom, she was very slim. I don't think my mom ever dieted. She was just slim. And so whenever she had 4 of us. She came out of her pregnancy slimmer than she started. So, of course, when I had my babies, it was like, well, I'd walk out of the hospital with a 22-inch waist. Obviously, I did not walk out of the hospital with a 22-inch waist. So it was like constantly, well, I have to lose all this weight because, she walked out of the hospital with a 22-inch waist, and I'm far from that. And so with having an eating disorder already, and I did restrict at first. Mm-hmm. That was the way I did it. Mm-hmm. But I had a miscarriage and decided, I'm going to have to do something differently, know. And then I went to binging and purging and exercise.
You see, the over-exercising component, I cannot relate to because I'm one of the laziest people I know, to be quite frank with you. I am. Over-exercising is, I cannot relate to it, but I saw it.
Yeah.
How much over-exercising would you do?
I didn't consider it over-exercising. I thought it was actually pretty good. But I know after my 3rd child, I decided to join a theater troupe, and we would dance 9 hours, and lunch would be a yogurt.
A yogurt.
Lunch would be a yogurt, and dance 9 hours. And I had just a lot of water. And so, of course, I had just had a baby, lost it all. I was slim for the show. I was very happy.
Right. You bring up 2 really interesting things. One, not that you were doing it, but water loading.
Yeah.
Something that I didn't know what that was or what that even meant. The medical ramifications and implications that can happen to these women are so dire that dancing, let's say, 9 hours and just having a yogurt, the idea of being so dehydrated and then, having potassium levels that could potentially be so low. That was, any eating disorder center or any therapist that specializes in eating disorders, if they're worth their salt, they're going to order labs because what they need to see is, potassium levels.
Oh, absolutely.
EKGs.
The sodium levels, the whole thing. You have to see what that's looking like because that's going to throw your whole cardiovascular system into
Absolutely.
whack.
Absolutely. The physical signs going into a doctor, because I remember educating Hofstra on their new medical students screening for domestic violence. And I remember thinking, how is screening for domestic violence different than screening for an eating disorder? Because doctors will often screen for eating disorders. They screen for overweight. They don't really know how to screen for underweight.
That's true.
Right?
They're not good at screening domestic violence either.
That's right. That's right. And those 2 things can look very similar because, the person who has an eating disorder, can be grabbed, with an iron deficiency. It can be explained away in so many ways that the docs out there and the clinicians need to get real savvy on needling down and drilling back to what is really going on. The dentists, we need our dentists to start paying attention to enamel on teeth and scratches on knuckles, and having those conversations. Our GPs, our OBGYNs, who have relationships with these women. We were talking about how, let's say they get away from their abuser, the woman who's experienced domestic violence. Now she's got to find another man. Have you been out there lately with these ridiculous cougars in their leopard pants and their, skinny little mini things and their big old boobs? I can't compete with that, nor do I want to. But what I'm saying is...
You have to be at the gym because everyone will ask you, well, how often do you go to the gym and what gym do you go to?
Are you kidding? Where was I last week? I was somewhere, I was in the city the other day. What am I saying? Somewhere last week. And I was on the Upper East Side. And I don't know, it felt like I walked into Stepford area, but Stepford in like looking just right off of the Housewives show. Is anyone real? These lips are real. Like, it's real, but yet there is this, once you get divorced, you go through your therapy, okay, you decide, I want to find a man. Mm-hmm. Now, you have to become, if you buy into that, this, beautiful, thin, it's a pain.
Well, and it's difficult to date that way. And being a therapist, I get so many girls coming in, and this is what they're doing. I have to get to the gym. I mean, they're single girls, and they're looking at their bodies, and, well, he didn't call me back, so is it because he doesn't like me? What's wrong with me?
They need to start asking, when was the last time the guy saw his own penis? Okay? Is he that fit? I'm so tired of it, really, honestly. Sorry.
We will be right back and continuing speaking with Heather.
Sorry.
Hi, I'm Vinny, owner of VMD Electric. Family owned and operated since 1996, serving all of Nassau and Suffolk County. You can call us anytime, night or day, at 631-669-6915 for all your residential and commercial needs. Here are some photos of our current projects.
Suffolk County Gold Refinery for the highest paid prices for your gold, diamonds, and jewelry with cash on the spot. Visit their showroom for unbelievable prices on fine jewelry and engagement rings. 71 Millbob Boulevard, Farmingdale, 631-777-CASH. Suffolk County Gold Refinery for the highest paid prices for your gold, diamonds, and jewelry with cash on the spot. Visit their showroom for unbelievable prices on fine jewelry and engagement rings. 71 Millbob Boulevard, Farmingdale, 631-777-CASH. For the highest paid prices for your gold, diamonds, and jewelry with cash on the spot. Suffolk County Gold Refinery, 631-777-CASH.
What is Grand Prix Motorsports? It's a full-service motorsport performance and service shop. It's West Coast custom style, East Coast pricing, old-school customer service, custom-built bikes, all-out performance upgrades, and free towing too. Grand Prix Motorsports is automobile, motorcycle, jet ski, and ATV, performance, service, and repair. It's online at GrandPrixMS.com. Grand Prix Motorsports, Long Island Avenue, Deer Park.
Welcome back to Voices on Madhouse Reality TV. Here with my girlfriend, Heather Summerstein, my colleague. And we don't have much longer, so if you're going to be calling in, dial up 669-7999. We're going to talk about these books we have showing here because sometimes it's just, if you're not sure, if you're thinking, even for a moment, sometimes just reading something just gives you some insight. And you'll look for that help, and you might find somebody or someone to help you or a center.
There's a couple of books. This particular one, whatever the cost, I actually, and I'll show it to you again, I met her, let's see, because it's my signed copy. Jennifer Bodine, she went through West Point as a graduate of West Point.
That's tough.
It is beyond tough. This woman is no joke. And she talks about her eating disorder. She talks about what it's like to be, West Point Academy graduate, and what it was like for her and the abuse that she took from all of her male, cohorts. So this is really an interesting read, and it offers a ton of hope. And she can be contacted. She's a fantastic woman. So that's Jennifer Bodine. She's got her own website, and it's called Whatever the Cost.
At West Point, it's hard for men, but can you imagine being a woman and the men don't want you there, or them just making it harder? And I believe that this kind of stuff happened with the women when they first began in the police force as well.
Absolutely.
This kind of treatment.
Absolutely. This next book that I chose, because I just happened to hear her speak, Catherine Zerbe. She's been around for quite some time. It's called The Body Betrayed. You can find this at your local library, or I actually bought it off of Amazon. I think it's just a few dollars. She really goes into eating disorders in the sense of the cultural context, body image, types of eating disorders, the iatrogenic effects, where they came from, and also how to seek help is really important. And that's something that I want to get in before.
Yes. Why don't we talk about that?
Sure.
Where can people go? Where can they get help? You have some suggestions?
I do.
Possible phone numbers as well?
I do.
Please.
There are two women in particular that run an eating disorder consortium on Long Island, and in fact they're just about to open an IOP, which is an intensive outpatient program.
Oh, excellent.
Yes, and their names are Sandra Kronberg. I don't know if we can see that. This is like so. Yeah, I'll spell it for you.
Spell it for us.
Sandra, Kronberg. And she is she's a nutritionist. She's got her master's, and she's also an expert in eating disorders. They've got 5 locations from Manhasset all the way to Westbury. And Vicki Paley, she's also got her LCSW. And these two women have a business that they're so compassionate and so fantastic when it comes to looking multi-dimensional factors. Because look, how many women actually report domestic violence? There's no way that, an eating disorder specialist is going to be able just to treat women with domestic violence.
Well, that's what's the common factor here, too, because we're not going to talk about domestic violence, and we're not going to talk about my eating disorder either. Both are a secret, and they're being held that way. And that's an interesting thing that you're bringing up, because that was a question for me. If a client, if abuse or sexual trauma is a common factor, when they go into a center to be treated, is that being treated as well, or is the eating disorder being treated?
Good question. They have different tracks. So there could be a trauma track where they're going to treat them together. Because one really can't coexist without the other. So, yes, they both have to be addressed.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and you can look, these are just 2 of my suggestions, but you can look up, there's 2 websites. There's one called Ed Referral. It's just EDREFERRAL, or how do you spell referral? .com. Or somethingfishy.com.
Right.
And if you're not sure who the clinicians are, you can have them get in touch with you, and I can certainly be of help. But I would start with Sandra Kronberg and Vicki Paley.
Do they do speaking engagements? I feel like I've heard them speak.
They do. Sandra and Vicki would come on in a second, and they're fantastic.
I feel like I had a workshop with Vicki. I feel like she did a workshop, and it was really good. It was a really good workshop and extremely insightful. It was for professionals, and of course, as we're talking in abuse, we do see things like this. I get a lot of overeating.
Mm-hmm.
The teens are overeating,
mm-hmm.
and I find out they're coming from homes where they are getting hit or something like that, or they're seeing abuse, or the way they're being treated, or their mothers give them up, or things of that nature, and they're in a lot of pain. So I get a lot of overeating.
These are the women. These are the women, because that is, again, it's an eating disorder as well. It's about food, the relationship to the food, the mind-body connection, using DBT or CBT as far as the treatment is concerned. And one of the components of, DBT is mindfulness of I know I'm not mindful when I eat. I'm not paying attention. And, making that connection of understanding that it's also fuel for your body, reshaping, resculpting food. It is something that's got to happen. And, these two ladies they've been in the business for over 25 years and really, really can resonate and want to help. They do workshops, they do in-services. And fortunately or unfortunately, they're growing.
Well, I believe that. I have had clients that I felt had an eating disorder. This was some years back, and I couldn't find a place for them. Every place I called did not take insurance, and the rate was $200. I didn't have a patient that could afford that. So I was there thinking, where do I send my abused patients then? I have no idea. This was some years back, so that's really good to hear.
Yeah. And maybe I'll put you in touch with them, and you can, who knows, have another show with it. They're dynamic and just fantastic. Fantastic.
Well, I believe we're coming to the end very soon, so do you have some last-minute words?
I do. Of course I do.
Of course you do.
Of course I do. I wouldn't be Heather if I didn't. I think that especially in these times of the holidays coming up and what we have going on with constantly watching, about the massacre, I think it's just really important to thine own self be true. I cannot borrow from anyone other than, it was Shakespeare who said it, right? And knowing what that is, how do you get there? To thine own self be true. Take the time to figure out what it takes to get to thine self and what that means. And best of luck to you, because it's going to be okay, because you're on the journey whether you're here or not.
Well, that's very important, and I like the way you said that. Often when I'm sitting with clients, and they have so many questions, and, in the dating scene, because I have a lot of single females, and I'm always like, but you got to love you first.
It's so true.
I work with chakras in my office, and it's like, what's the chakra about? This love. And the clients will come back, wow, they'll leave before they leave. I can do this. I know I can love. And they'll come back and like, that was really hard. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, because do you love you? Do you love you? Because, well, you can love everybody, but how about over here?
It's a long
and
journey.
They're like, wow, you didn't say that part.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
It's not for the weak.
It's not for the weak. Well, we're coming to an end. And so what I'd like to say is happy holidays. Enjoy your holidays. I will not be on next week, so a rerun will be playing because I'm going to take a break. I work a lot. And so I thank you for watching the show. If you have any questions, you could call me also at the Triskele Wellness Center, 631-210-4606, where I do work with abuse of all forms, sexual trauma. And my good friend here is chock full of information, so if I need some advice, I can call her. So good night, and have a wonderful, wonderful holiday. And New Year.
Yeah, that's right.
Happy New Year.
Who forgot about New Year's?
Bless it, Yule. It's Yule tonight.